My colleague Sieglinde Snap from Michigan State University asked me if I was interested in working with her on a review of sustainable intensification technologies focusing on Malawi. And I said, of course I am. And immediately thought of conservation agriculture because it received a lot of attention and promotion in countries like Malawi and Zimbabwe. So we started to work on that. And Sieglinde wanted to concentrate on the biophysical evidence, and I wanted to look at the evolution of institutions and the policy landscape. Unfortunately, we realized quite soon that things around conservation agriculture are not quite that straightforward and simple as we thought when we started. So I would like to suggest a different title to the presentation: Confusion, Controversy, and Conservation Agriculture. Actually, what is conservation agriculture? When you Google the term conservation agriculture, you get about 5 million hits. And that shows you the potential diversity of what is out there as conservation agriculture. When you look at CA as a package of technologies around 3 key principles that should be adapted to site-specific conditions, it should actually be quite simple. We have minimum soil disturbance, we have maximum soil cover, and crop rotation. The minimum soil disturbance should reduce erosion that we see here. This is a field in Malawi the picture is taken 3 weeks ago after a 30-millimeter rain on a ridged field. This is for a tobacco crop, and you see the erosion. No-till should address that issue. Soil cover should protect the soil. It should reduce the amount of evaporation, should reduce soil temperature, and allow biological processes to work better. Crop rotation, the main objective here is to break pest cycles and enhance nutrient and water conservation and efficiency. The all-over objective is to conserve soil and water resources and improve soil fertility under CA. So what is the confusion? There is a multitude of different terms around like conservation agriculture, conservation farming, sustainable land management, sustainable intensification, even terms like farming the God's way or organic agriculture that describe technologies and technology packages which seem to be the same, share elements, but it's not quite clear if they're sometimes contradictory or if they're complementary. And the real confusion, in my view, is in the fine print. Zero tillage does not disturb the soil at all, but ripping does, and permanent planting basins do. Can we put them in the same technology package? Then ridging is a technology that is very much practiced in Malawi, but it actually increases erosion because it's not practiced in the recommended way, while contour lines are absolutely essential at hill slope cultivation to stop erosion. Then who is a CA adopter? Only a farmer that adopts the full package of technologies, or also farmers that select individual elements and implement those. Then, of course, there's the quite difficult aspect of herbicide application. Some people assume that if a farmer applies herbicides in Malawi, that he's practicing CA. That's not the case. And there are many issues about the cost implication of herbicides and safety issues. There's also a lot of different motivations for CA. Some organizations claim that CA can improve household income through improved productivity or reduce in production costs. Other organizations just focus on food security issues through yield stabilization. Then we have heard earlier that CA can sequester carbon. and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that can be one focus. There's the labor-saving aspect, especially for women. This is promoted by organizations like NORAD in Zambia, and the FAO in general promotes that. And then there is the issue of CA. Is it a low-input or organic? Is it a high-input system that needs inorganic fertilizers, and so on? So it's quite variable. And are triple wins possible? There is a recent IFPRI discussion paper out there that suggests that it is possible to mitigate effects of climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve agricultural productivity through technologies like conservation agriculture. So what is the controversy? In 2009, Ken Giller and his group published a paper in Field Crops Research, which eventually became known as the heretics' view on conservation agriculture, and it's actually in the title of the paper. And in that paper, they tried to challenge the perception that conservation agriculture is a panacea to all problems in smallholder production systems in Africa. And they want to caution against a push for CA that is mainly driven by donors, as they see it. And they point out the fact that there's very little or no evidence in the scientific literature for Africa that CA does work. Now, the paper kicked off a heated debate in the scientific community, and a number of scholars did respond to it. Hobbs, Walsh, and Derbsch and others countered Giller's criticism, and they said CA is underway, and it's very much in demand by farmers, a statement that is backed by implementers who say that we cannot cope with the demand from farmers. Then they say that Ken Giller's paper is corrosive to the continued promotion of conservation agriculture because CA is the best bet that we have in the absence of better alternatives, and he casts doubt on that, and that might slow down the continued promotion. And they point out that CA has been successfully implemented in other regions like South America, Australia, and North America, and that these experiences are very well documented, but they have to admit that evidence from Africa is very scant. Now, in our review, we try to focus on sustainable intensification technologies and smallholder systems that are rain-fed and use maize. I would like to concentrate on two aspects of conservation agriculture and group it in the way that we look at grain legume diversification through rotation or intercropping, and the other one I would like to put together soil tillage, no tillage, and soil cover technologies. And that's for the simple fact that we have actually not found any paper that puts all these three technologies together. So we find papers on grain legume diversification, and here we want to show the different services that the system can provide beyond the maize yield merely. So we look at protein yield, biomass yield, and rain use efficiency. The blue line is always the control, that is continuous maize cultivation, unfertilized, and against that we have a range of treatments. And you see here that when you add a grain legume, you increase your protein yield, you increase your biomass yield. Not in all cases you increase your maize yield. And when you add a legume tree like Gliricidia, you basically have the same pattern. There's a lot more biomass produced, and the system performs better than a sole maize crop. In this case, actually the sole maize crop had the highest yield stability. So it's not all wonderful and straightforward. When we add inorganic fertilizer, we get this picture, where again the maize pigeon pea intercrop fertilized produces the highest yields in all indicators. You have the highest protein yield, highest biomass, and the best rain use efficiency. This study, well, actually, because of time reasons, I want to jump it and come to minimum disturbance and crop residue technologies. The studies from Osuji, Guto, and Kosgai all find that minimum disturbance and crop residue do produce higher yields than in conventional tillage systems. But we also find negative examples, like from Malawi, Matarachera and Noza Banda report that there is a yield penalty under minimum ridge tillage systems compared to conventional ridging in all 3 years of the study that they ran. And we also have papers that give us a very mixed picture, like from Chiara, where no-till performed very poorly in the first 2 seasons, then improved slightly. Overall, it was not as good as the other control and ridge tillage, but crop residue application overall had a very positive effect in ridge tillage, hand-hoe, and in no-till systems. Now, to bring one example for an ecosystem service of minimum soil disturbance and crop residues, the study from Nchunu, which found that even with as low as 10% residue or soil cover, you can reduce the soil loss by 68% and the soil organic carbon loss from the system by 52%. And they relate these results to the different crusts that develop on the soil in the studies. The structural crust under no-till protects the soil a lot better than sedimentary crust under the till system. In conclusion, I would like to quickly run you through the situation in Malawi. Where do we stand in terms of conservation agriculture in Malawi? The technology was first brought in the late 90s through the Sasakawa Global 2000 initiative. Unfortunately, the momentum was lost when that project came to an end, and only in 2007 it picked up momentum again. The National Conservation Agriculture Task Force was relaunched, and one of their first activities was to define a Chichewa vernacular term that describes conservation agriculture, and that's Ulimi, Wolera, Ntaka. Ulimi is agriculture, Ntaka is the soil, and Wolera means to protect or care for. So I think it's a quite good translation of conservation agriculture. The task force brings together 24 members. Unfortunately, not all promoters of the technology in Malawi, but it brings government, NGOs, private sector, and players from academia together. And to yield to Gilla's criticism, also donors are involved in the task force. The main activities that I would like to point out is that we run a baseline and monitoring evaluation survey among promoters to find out where we are in terms of promoting the technology and how promoters assess the adoption of the technology. Then we're working on harmonization of CA guidelines, which becomes quite evident when we look at the confusion about the technology that we discussed earlier. And there is a CA campaign that's rolling on this year. The Ministry of Agriculture in Malawi runs a fairly well-known subsidy program, and this year the ministry wanted to pilot an SLM voucher, a Sustainable Land Management voucher, where the subsidized provision of inputs should be linked to adoption of CA technologies. Unfortunately, For a number of reasons, that pilot is not going to take place this year, but the idea is still there. Then if we look at policy documents like the agricultural sector-wide approach, the new agricultural policy of 2005, the Green Belt Initiative document and others, there's always a section on natural resource management. But what these documents lack is to point out how this can be and should be achieved. So we have the right objectives, but we don't have the instruments defined how to achieve these documents. At least that's the situation in Malawi. Then what needs to be done? In order to convince policymakers, farmers, promoters, donors, and even the heretics in the system, we need to generate a body of evidence in support of conservation agriculture, and that goes from the field level through a well-coordinated monitoring evaluation system where we find out about adoption, about socioeconomic parameters of farmers, and where we find out what works best, what mix of technology works best through demonstration on-farm trials. Then at the next level, we need to run biophysical research trials and adaptation trials to understand the underlying processes a bit better in the conditions that we face in Malawi. And then we propose to do work on landscape-wide impacts to assess the benefits of the investment in conservation agriculture. We have huge problems in Malawi with power generation, and that's because of siltation of rivers and the lakes which we rely on. And that comes at a cost to the country. So we want to evaluate these economy-wide effects, and we need to demonstrate where and how CA could be applied and what benefits can be expected from the investment. DFID is planning to pump in £7 million over the next 4 years in support of CA in Malawi with the objective to reduce effects of climate change. And because of the Ken Giller paper, they insist on this evidence to be provided. They say, yes, we want to do it, but we have to know, is it working and how is it working? So in the end, we have to thank Ken Giller for publishing that paper. And I believe that IFPRI is quite well set up to take a role in that research, and we're discussing at the moment with Total Land Care, the main promoter, and DFID, what and how we can do in Malawi in support of providing the evidence in support of CA. Thank you very much.